And we are back here at the Memphis TCG Regional here. I am your host, Jeffrey Saran Rap Saran.
And I am John Kettler, and we are just about near the end of this tournament. We've got 2 rounds left, going into round 8, the penultimate round of the first day of the tournament. And tensions are high. A lot of records are really on the line to see who can actually advance into the second day. These 2 players, though, Rukan and I believe Jordan, are both 6-1, 6 wins, 1 loss. So they aren't quite feeling the same pressure that some other players are right now. However, they want to go ahead and give themselves the best chance to not only advance into the second day of play, but also to win the tournament.
Absolutely. You want to try to net as many wins as you can. While with the new rule this year, for all you have to do is net 19 points to be able to make that day 2, you want to still put yourself in a good spot next round, next day to, limit yourself for any kind of error.
Yeah, exactly. And with that, a little bit of additional inclusivity, there's less pressure on people to be able to advance to the second day. We're probably, in all likelihood, going to see maybe like anywhere from 35, 40, maybe even 50 people go on to the second day. And at that point, depending on where you're at in the rankings, you're going to have either an easier time or a harder time. And that's why a win right here is really important, because you won't be playing from behind the way that a lot of players with, say, 19 points will be playing from behind.
Absolutely, man. It depends on what part of the mountain you're going to start climbing to get to the top where that $5,000 championship win there at the end of the day. So, I think the players are still lining up here. I'm not sure if they have their headphones or not on yet, so we're not going to speak just yet about their matchups.
Yeah.
However, you had a chance to scope the round a little bit, scope the tables a little bit last round. How are you feeling at the top tables right now? What do you see some left over?
Well, first off, I feel like there's a surprising amount of variety for the top tables. I counted out of the top 4, 7 different decks. I think about like 2 Malamar, where that was the only repeat. Every other deck was different, which was really refreshing to see. As I went further on last round, I saw that we started to see a lot more repetition. We started to see a lot more of the main decks we've been seeing, which unsurprisingly, end up being about the same 7 or 8 decks. So the meta game is really fresh. There's a lot of variety, a lot of different options. And actually, when I got a little bit further down, I started to see some decks that were a little more surprising, a little stronger, a little weirder too. Like Kirk's favorite deck, former favorite deck before Passimian hit the field. Whale Lord Steelix was going strong near the 30s, and I actually think I saw a Gardevoir GX. That's a throwback from not this past World Championship, but the one before.
Absolutely there. So the players are getting set up right now. Headphones are on, so we'll be able to speak about both of them. We have Rukan Shao, who's piloting, looks like the same 60 that we saw Danny Altavia piloting earlier today. Having a Chimico in there to halt abilities being played from the hand. But on Jordan's side, he's playing a Psychic variant, but a little different.
That's right. We've got essentially what's a Malamar mirror match, but it's a little bit different here, and you can already see the difference just in that Shining Lugia. I don't think I see a Shining Lugia in Rukan's list, but actually Jordan has 2 copies, so essentially what he's aiming for is a much bulkier War of Attrition type list where we've got a whole bunch of non-GXs that he's relying on. Granted, both decks have non-GXs and GXs alike, but I feel like the pressure of the non-GX attackers is felt more here in Jordan's list. He runs Shrine of Punishment, which is a pretty uncommon inclusion in Malamar.
Absolutely. And now we're underway here. Jordan now getting the advantage going turn 1. Starting with that Psychic Tapu Lele promo and having a Shining Lugia on the bench. Attach a DCE, first Acrobike, drops Psychic, second Acrobike, going back to those tough decisions here. What do you want for the later game? What do you need in what do you don't mind ditching away?
Yeah, and there goes the Tapu Koko. He runs 3, however, so...
This is his 3rd Acrobike. He has it all in his hand right now. Cedamar Shadow, he opted over to Koko. Another Koko going to the bin. And I wonder if he knows what Rukan's playing. I guess it's safe to assume, given his finish at Oaks Regional, he's probably playing the Marshadow version versus the spread version at Jordan's pilot here.
But now with all these Kokos, Rukan's probably thinking, okay, I'm dealing with a little bit of a different variant. This isn't going to be such a cookie-cutter, straightforward mirror match. It's going to be a little bloopy, a little wonky, but that's okay. We're going to see probably lots of spread from Jordan despite discarding those 2 Kokos. But at the same time, we're going to see Rukan repeating the excellent line of play that carried him to a 2nd place finish at the last North American Regional Championship.
Absolutely there. He has a lot of 90s attackers also, he was mentioned earlier, to kind of keep up with Jordan here, so he has the option to play around his Shrine abilities also here. But that turn 1 let loose could hinder him, as if he doesn't hit the Lele, he may want to use doesn't hit the Lily, he may want to use the Lele to get to it. So,
although I feel like in a way that let loose might have hindered Jordan himself, because he really needed to get a second Inkay into play. That way he can set up his Malamars for later on and have the acceleration and the momentum that he needs. And a really cool play right here from Rukan is this Oricorio from Guardians Rising. It lets you search your deck for up to 2 energy cards. And in this case, he's actually digging his deck for 2 Psychic Energy. Has a lot of great combos with Mysterious Treasure. Gives a lot of utility there, because you don't have to discard nearly as many cards that you're going to lose permanently, because all those Psychic Energy you're discarding, they're going to be back, they're going to help you, they're going to be great. But instead, with just those 2 energy grabbed with the Oricorio, it's a pretty slow, pretty clunky turn from Rukan.
You know, that Vital Dance ability, like you were saying before, search those 2 Psychic Energies, being able to put them in hand and combo away potentially with Mysterious Treasure Ultra Ball. But it looks like the Let Loose also worked on Rukan as well. He didn't seem to have much of a very dynamic start on his end. It just kind of
and we've got
was
the
unable to
clean
do anything.
Cynthia with no cards in hand.
Looks like something might be happening right now. Discuss here.
Okay, so pointing to the Shining Lugia.
Okay. Maybe he's just conceding because he was able to get going
Just
here.
get set up.
Well, I think what happened here is that he sees that Shining Lugia can get the knockout on his only Inkay, and at that point,
he sees the writing on the
wall.
wall.
Only has Oricorio with the energy on it. Nothing really else going on. It's kind of like,
that was effectively a draw pass turn from Rukan.
Yes.
That was, he went ahead and he thinned his deck out a little bit by grabbing these 2 Psychic Energy, but we didn't see a supporter. We really didn't see anything there, which is kind of a shame considering the mirror match with such different variations can be really fascinating and really exciting, right?
Absolutely there. I think he was hoping for there is that Jordan could also be a little bit on the back foot off his own let loose, but unfortunately there had to clean fresh so clean Cynthia to be able to reset his hand there. So
clean. As clean as our suit jackets.
So, Rukan here gets a chance to go first, and maybe he could actually kind of do the inverse play and play let loose against Jordan as well. We've seen that a lot today. Play to the strength of the player that played the let loose, but also play to the strength of the person that kind of got hit with it as well.
Yeah, and Jordan was probably 1 card off of that let loose not really being that great for him, where it was a clunky start. And if Rukan had anything remotely resembling an average turn for that deck, it's just insane to think about effectively dead drawing with the Malamar deck. There's so many outs to tap with Lele. There's 4 Ultra Ball, 4 Mysterious Treasure, the Acro Bikes, 2 Friend Balls, and those are going to be used like crazy in this mirror match because we have Psychic Pokemon all over the place. It's about the perfect card to have unless you need to dump Psychic Energy into your discard pile. And hey, Oricorio's back.
Unfortunately, you start with it this time, so it doesn't get to take advantage of that awesome ability there. But we do see a Mars Shadow, and I will say probably the smart thing there would probably be dumping, since we do see that it's the spread Malamar deck versus, I guess, a true mirror.
Yeah, and with Shining Lugia starting in the active position, I feel like Jordan might be able to apply some early pressure here without really sacrificing that much. Looking at both players' options, Rukan is obviously playing more of a streamlined version of the deck with more GX Pokemon. And it's not a surprise. He helped innovate what it looks like right now. And we see the Chime Echo hit the board with that Bell of Silence.
This is about to be actually really big in this match in particular, because Jordan's not going to get a chance to get any abilities out if Rukan just goes Bell of Silence constantly. Yep. He can never, ever evolve to Malamar.
Well,
not until it gets knocked out or Guzman around.
Okay, good point. Yeah, adding those little qualifying statements there really kind of gives perspective to it. Eventually, that Chime Echo is going to have to be dealt with, and I believe that it's going to be challenged at some point where Jordan's got a lot of options. That Shining Lugia hits hard. It doesn't hit for perfect damage, even with the Psychic and a double colorless. But I feel like that Chime Echo is eventually going to go down, but not after a lot of work.
I don't think until Rukan sets up. We see a Lillian's hand. He already played a Cynthia there, but he's going to just slowly build into his turns here. Discarding the Necrozma off the Ultra Ball and his like energy. Probably going to find another Inkay here, and I believe he has another Ultra Ball as well to really just slowly establish his board.
Oh, yeah. getting 2 Inky into play is so huge. Maybe if he gets a third one, we can see the type of explosive start we've seen from other Malamar players this tournament, getting all that energy acceleration going and effectively being able to sweep from there. But Jordan wouldn't be out of it, and looking again at both players' lists, I feel like once that Shrine of Punishment hits the board, it's not going away.
Interesting enough, he opted to retreat the Oricorio to bring up the Chimico here to the active spot. Do you think there's any unique reason why he would have done that versus keep it on the bench?
Well, a couple possibilities. Maybe one is that he's trying to bait a Guzma or some sort of stall play to avoid the Chimeco lock from kicking in, but knowing full well that he probably has an answer to whatever it is. That's one possibility. Another is that he's afraid of not being able to get the Chimeco back into play. Like, he doesn't know Jordan's complete list. He doesn't know whether or not he'll get field blowered at a particular time. So it also could be a conservative play by Rukan to go ahead and be like, you know what, I've got my Chimeco here. It's not going away unless you work really hard to get rid of it. And even if you do, I'm going to one retreat.
Yep, absolutely there. So I can agree with that there. And this is what I was wondering what could have happened here also is why retreat is the easy Deoxys, DC, Guzma on it for the knockout as well. So, those are all different options there. And I think forcing that out there, being able to keep the Chimeco active spot, not going away anytime soon. Only going to be able to dish the 60 to it.
And by the way, we've got a big Lily for a fresh 8 cards. Got to go and just high-five your opponent after that, even if you don't like seeing all those cards. Because, hey, sportsmanship.
Absolutely there. And doesn't have much else going on. We do see a Mysterious Treasure. Could grab another Inkay, could hold it to get the Malamar next turn, and that's what we're going to opt here is just to reserve that Mysterious Treasure and, pass it over to Rukan.
And I really like attaching the double on Jordan's side because that applies a little bit of pressure. It makes Rukan either bring something else out to knock that Lugia out, thus disrupting his Bell of Silence approach, or in the alternative, it's going to make Rukan go ahead and be like, okay, I'll go ahead and keep Bell of Silencing, but not really get that much impact out of it. Where, okay, you know what, the Malamars are
absolutely there.
The Malamars are prized, but not put into play.
Yeah, exactly. So he might get like one turn of value out of it. He'll get the Fresh So Clean Lily for 6. And he might get some value out of that first Bell of Silence there. But like you said, another DCE here could just be the one-shot knockout on this active Chimeco here.
Yep,
at a cost.
The DCEs.
At a cost, though, of discarding one of the DCEs.
Yeah. Acrobike, pretty...
Ooh, interesting. We do see a Marshadow in his hand to let loose. So now this could really be a good spot for him to be able to let loose and then hit him with the Bell of Silence.
Well, I'd be concerned benching, and it seems like that's why he's discarding it. If he benched that Marshadow, then his bench would be just completely clogged up. So so the let loose is really valuable, but it seems like this line of play will give him more options as far as attackers go. And getting one of those Malamars into play is big. He'll probably get one more at some point in the near future.
Okay.
Oh, and there's
I agree with you there. Deoxys comes down to the bench. Psychic Recharge, right down into it. Might see an attachment from hand, but nope, we're going to go right into the Bell of Silence. 10 damage, and he won't be able to play any Pokemon down that have abilities from his hand.
And I'm excited to see if we have that follow-up double colorless energy.
He does have a pretty large hand from that Fresh Lily last turn to draw 8, now having 9 cards in hand because he didn't play any. But it looks like we might be just seeing a Guzma he brought to the top or a Cynthia. Yep.
Yeah.
Guzma here. So he's opted to go after the Malamar versus the Chimeco. He sees that more of a valuable threat over.
Oh, that's right. We're dealing plus 60 damage because it's an ability, knocking out that Malamar, applying a little bit of additional pressure. And this is really important in the Malamar mirror matches. Like so many other decks trying to deal with Malamar, knocking out the Malamars is usually your best chance of being able to win the game. And the same applies for mirror match. Doesn't matter what kind of variation it is. We've got a lot of pressure applied there. And Rukan, on the other hand, he was able to get out 3 Inkay last turn, so he's not really struggling as much, even though the Malamar got knocked out.
Absolutely. There, Argent Wing coming in with that attack. 60 more of the opponent's active has an ability to get a knockout on Malamar. We do see a Mysterious Treasure for the Malamar, and now another
Lily for 6.
Another So Fresh, So Clean Lily for 6. See an Escape Rope, another Deoxys. So he's getting the 90X attackers that he wants for this type of matchup, but he's still just missing a few Malamar.
I know, and it's like it seems like he's just been a card off for the past 2 turns, and it's really not any lack of planning or anything like that. It's just kind of how it dealt out. And Bell of Silence is back into effect, slowing Jordan down a little bit, but not to a whole lot of great effect. But depending on what Jordan gets off of this acro bike, it might actually be, oh, okay, and let's see, he's got the energy, so if he wants a knockout on a Chimeco, he's got it, but he might just be able to Guzma even more, depending on what's in his hand. Oh,
all right, looks like there's yep, so good catch there from the judge,
Very
putting
good
the hand
catch.
out there. Wasn't able to bench a Rangaroo because it does have an ability, and with Chimeco, Bell of Silence, can't play Pokemon that has an ability from their hand.
Yep.
And I'm curious there, if he has the Guzma, nope, and his opposite just take the knockout right there on the Chimeco.
And, that's precisely the sort of tunnel vision that makes players misplay and have big procedural problems. So it's great that our judge caught that instantly, where you're so focused on the Malamars being locked from being able to enter the board that when you bench the Oranguru, you're not even thinking about it. It's like, okay, it's second nature. It's like, okay, that's not much of an ability right now, but it's not even an ability I'm using, but still it's an ability, so.
Absolutely there. Shine Luca did use Aero Force, take the knockout on that Chimeco, and we return to Rukan's side. Has a Cynthia, shuffle your hand to your deck, draw 6 cards. Mimikyu coming to the bench, and then a second recharge. Going over to Mimikyu, we're gonna see a Felcher copycat. What do you think here?
I'm feeling like we're going to be seeing a copycat here, where unless, I mean, let's see. He is going to have to copy Aero Force if he uses the Mimikyu. But it just depends on what he ends up knocking out with it. I mean, there'd be a lot more value if he's able to target down an Inkay here. But, I mean, as far as what his hand looks like, he's like, you know what, I'll just go ahead and exchange prizes. That's okay. I'll go ahead and just keep my board flowing because I've got 2 Malamar, and hey, this is a game. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Let's see how it goes.
Now with the Chimeco gone and out the way, Jordan's going to kind of sprint here and go ahead and grab as many Malamars as he can with the opportunity given to get his board set up. Go ahead and dish in the Shrine. We may not need this just yet right now, but I got plenty of others to come back of it if needed.
If needed, but Rukan's still playing a total non-GX game. No Pokemon to be whittled away by that Shrine of Punishment.
Absolutely there. So Shrine going to the bin off of Mysterious Treasure, gets a Malamar in hand, and he's going to Cynthia here. Oh, sorry, Mysterious Treasure discarding the Cynthia, I apologize, and getting the second Malamar. So we're getting loaded here. Going to start second recharging to get this Deoxys fully loaded here, and now Ringaroo can come down to the bench.
And hey, it's no surprise right now. Both players are attempting to play a solid non-GX game, and under normal circumstances, this would work fantastic for Rukan. But again, this is Mirror, and Jordan's list is built almost entirely around the non-GX game. I mean, the Shrine of Punishments, those are evidence to that, but also just the fact that there just aren't that many GX Pokemon there. The Necrozma being used mostly like as a clinch attacker, but also for Black Ray GX.
Yep. Absolutely. We won't be getting much use out of that card here because of the 90X that on Jordan's side here. But we're going to see looks like a Psychic here from the Deoxys to take out this active Mimikyu. Sorry, the glare made it look like the art a little different there. But yeah, active Mimikyu there. I was a little confused. I'm not familiar with the art of Mimikyu. It's a little gold, a little off.
A little blinding. That's what reverse foils do, the same way that the rainbow wares do. Just blindingly beautiful cards. And I really like the conservative approach that Jordan took, where he wasn't like just dumping a whole bunch of psychic energy on that Deoxys. No, he did just enough that he needed to get the knockout. If he attaches and this Deoxys isn't knocked out next turn, which it full well will be at this point, it's
20, 40,
not really that
60
big of a
times
deal.
2 hits the 120 weakness.
Hey, and perfect match from Rukan too, huh?
Yep, so, and he's going to set up too. He has another Deoxys ready to hit with Power Blast or Psychic given the situation. 3 energy already loaded on it. And it looks like that was a Choice Band down to the Mimikyu. Want to narrow it down. Want to get a full amount of effort out of the Lily there.
Yeah, not quite the same effort as that Lily to 8 or the 2 Lilies to 6 that our good friend Rukan and our good friend Jordan had. But, it's some cards, and it's like having a
so the judge is questioning something here. I'm not too sure what's going on. Looks like there might have been a catch on the comment on the stream there. Yeah. And it might be at a pause right now. All right, so headphone check.
We've seen a lot of blazing fast play from both players. Nothing that seemed really too crazy, but you still have to approach it. And it looks like play is back on with the Ultra Ball, getting those Inkays, Malamars into play, getting that flow of the board. So Jordan right now, he's up 1 prize, and basically he wants to keep it that way, where it's non-GX to non-GX.
Absolutely.
And his approach is, okay, let's go ahead and keep this going the way that I want it to. I've got my Orin Guru to draw me more cards. Keep this momentum going. Keep the pressure on Rukan. Get those knockouts, and then probably win the game by maybe 1 or 2 possessions.
So looks like we're going to go in on the Malamar here, using every little bit he can to take these knockouts in any type of fashion here in this 90X duel. 90X bloodbath, I guess you could say right now.
They're a psychic something. Don't know if I call it a bloodbath, since Pokemon don't get killed, they get knocked out. But, I really thought this Malamar knockout was really interesting, where he has a couple threats already set up. That Mimikyu, it's a threat. There's no question about it. But attacking with the Malamar is a little interesting, but, I mean, I can get on board with that.
I mean, if you think about trade for trade right now, Jordan is in the lead. Rukan has to figure out a way to get a knockout without getting the return knockout on itself.
Yeah.
And, unfortunately for him, everything in his deck is weak to Psychic or GX. Versus on Jordan's side, at any point he could drop an additional Lugia and probably resist the blow from anything on Rukan's side. So it's unfortunately a rough spot to be in right now.
Yeah, not unfortunately for Jordan, though, because I'm thinking, okay, so I've got this Malamar loaded up as a weapon. Very rarely do you actually see Malamar go on the aggressive in any matchup, and that includes Mirror, but it's getting the knockouts, it's getting the job done. That Mimikyu is going to be a threat, and hey, we might see the Malamar, one of those Malamars on the bench, or the Inkay, soon-to-be Malamar, become a threat.
He still has options through a Rangaroo as well. A Rangaroo, no slouch either. Sidekick, 60, 20, 20, 20 plus for each energy attached to your opponent's active. So that Deoxys with 3 energy right now, if it comes up, so Rangaroo will be ready to retaliate.
Yeah, and that makes all the difference between these two lists, is that Jordan's version of the deck, a little more spread-oriented, conservative, non-GX, it runs double colorless energy, so there isn't nearly as much stress to Psychic Recharge to the right place, because you've got double colorless, and a Psychic Recharge is all you need to score knockouts in a given turn.
So we do see Let Loose brought up Deoxys. Power Blast for the KO on the Malamar, or Psychic, however you want to feel it there. But he did get the Cynthia to draw back to his hand. So we're looking for energy, Malamar, and set up the next attacker here.
Yeah, and I feel right now that the lack of disruption in the current format is really hitting both these players, because at this point, without some sort of serious luck one way or the other for Rukan's side, it's almost pretty scripted to go in Jordan's favor, as long as he gets the knockouts, as long as he follows through and gets the final 2 knockouts, where he's guaranteed to get this knockout this turn, barring some sort of catastrophe. But all he has to do is just Psychic Recharge to the right thing, have it be a viable threat, and then he's got game on board.
Yeah, I mean, he's just going through the motions right now.
Yeah.
Make sure he's finalizing every single play. Make sure there's nothing else that Rukan can do to proceed to catch himself up in this game. Psychic Recharge, DCE to the Rangaroo. We're going to see a Psychic here on that Rangaroo. On the Deoxys. And I believe he still has one more Psychic Recharge if he wants to load up a Malamar, get it set up as well.
Yeah, although that's the thing about going through the motions with a deck like Malamar. And we've seen this happen at least a couple times, where the judge had to pause them because of how many different actions are going on. They have to make sure that they're making very careful, calculated plays that don't fundamentally break the rules, like that Orin Guru bench. And that's something that anybody at home has to consider too when they're playing Malamar, is that, yeah, you know what, there's some sequential plays you need to follow. Everything isn't automated like Pokemon Trading Card Game Online. You won't always be protected from making the illegal plays by mistake in real life, so you have to go ahead and make sure that you're following the instructions on all the cards, and there's a lot, but that's just part of the game.
Absolutely there. We do see Don Wings across him come down to the bench. Malamar skateboard brought to the active spot. And I think, Rukan's starting to see the pieces kind of fall not in his favor here. He's pulling the wrong Jenga pieces. The tower's about to fall down. And well, what else can he do here to kind of hopefully keep Jordan from getting to his spot?
Well, if we're talking Jenga, he might not have pulled all the wrong pieces here, because Moon's Eclipse GX is our GX attack. Might work pretty well in his favor. He's been playing behind the whole game, and he doesn't have nearly the type of options as far as come from behind wins that he might have last format. But if he has an out to be able to win this game, then it's probably preventing all effective attacks, including damage to news active Pokemon, right?
That's very fair there. You know, hopefully he's hoping that Jordan does not have the Guzma for the KO here. But looks like there might be some judge ruling going on right now that we're trying to get cleared up here. Not too sure what's going on. Maybe Kirk, you want to hop in on here real quick, explain what's going on?
Kirk here, hopping in with some behind the scenes action here. It looks like I believe when Jordan took his fifth or fourth prize, it was when he brought up the Deoxys to knock out the Mimikyu that just had 1 energy. Yeah. Mimikyu has no weakness.
That's right.
So he
used Psychic for 40.
Correct, and that knockout was taken there. So we're trying to resolve that. We've got the judge checking the feedback loop here. Both players still have their headsets on. We will bring you an update as soon as we have it.
Fantastic. And hey, that goes back to what we were talking about, where despite all the pressure in a tournament like this, sometimes you just have to go ahead and take a breath, just go ahead and clear your mind a little bit, and move not necessarily at a snail's pace, but just move at the right pace to go ahead and make sure, okay, am I doing this attack right? Am I applying my calculations right? Am I dealing the right amount? And with Mimikyu, with something so brittle like that, it's very easy for something like that to get lost, especially even 2-3 turns out.
Absolutely there. So this may be some time to take to resolve this here. It looks like he's going to be approaching the head judge to get a final verdict here on what steps it has to be, what processes it would have to be to consider what's happening here. As I've been in a situation before to where I was attacking. It was back in 2016. I was using Jolteon EX with a Swift attack, which says does 30 damage, but do not apply weakness or resistance when doing that attack. However, I was attacking Shamans, applying the weakness, two-shotting the Shamans.
Yeah.
And it kept going further and further into the game to where a judge came by and caught it on the second time I was doing it. I was playing against Russ, by the way. And unfortunately, it turned into, double. It was a game loss, I believe. It came to a game loss because I initiated it, even though the message was mutual.
Right.
Since I initiated the sequence, it turned into a game loss on my end, unfortunately, there.
And that seems to be pretty consistent with how that situation gets ruled, where we have the exact same thing happening here, where weakness was not applied. Both players missed it, but what we have going on here, applying what you said, we've got Jordan not applying it, but he initiated the sequence.
Absolutely.
Kind of like what you're saying. And you know what? I've had something like that happen with me before, too, where I initiated a sequence of illegal plays. And so the same thing happened where I ended up getting a game loss because of that. And it was a pretty tough game loss. But, I mean, it's just one of those things you have to take in stride and move on.
Back to your point there, somebody's got to breathe, make sure everything is going as it should. I mean, Jordan was at a point right now to where he was in the driver's seat for victory now, and now it's going to look like we're going to be going to Game 3 with the time extension, especially with now how rulings are a little more effective, a little more serious because they're taking into consideration. This is a regional. We're at the big stage. You're at this big point where there's 800 people of caliber efforts, and we got to make sure we're playing to those standards here. But it looks like we're going to be transitioning back to the game. Transition to us. Sorry about that there. And, it's just an unfortunate series of events there for Jordan, but you got to keep up. You got to understand what you're doing here.
And so earlier you guys might have heard a little bit about the judging situation going on, where the judge who's at the table right now, he's going towards the head judge. So that's kind of a procedural thing, a little weird thing in Pokemon, but that's kind of how it goes, where that usually happens in one of two situations. The first one is when a judge is kind of unsure about the best way to approach it, just double checking, making sure that they have a good understanding of the best way to do it. There is a head judge whose say is final in a tournament. And the second thing is if a table judge makes a ruling and then that ruling gets appealed. So how often will appealed rulings actually get overturned? Not too often. But at the same time, it's a right that every player has. And, I mean, we got to go ahead and just see how it goes with it.
Absolutely there. So we do see we have the head judge here now. Going to be doing a little scope of the replay action here.
Yeah.
Getting some of that esports love, getting the replay action here on able to see what exactly happened there to confirm that they did apply that weakness to that from that Mimikyu, even though there was no weakness to apply, and the prize was taken, and so that the correct actions are being taken as far as punishment. And unfortunately, I do think it is going to be a game loss, but
or maybe even a multi-prize penalty, and that could be just enough to turn the tide for Rukan to win Game 2. But you know what? I mean, even with that, there's plenty of time to chill out and just play a good, clean game 3, because the way that I might be thinking of it if I were in the position of having made the error is, okay, I basically got a free win that first game anyways, and I'm going first in game 3, so all things considered, it's really not that bad of a situation. But I've got to say, the game has changed a lot in the past few years, and with having this chance to do what's effectively an instant replay,
Yep.
in football, there are instant replays that people see all the time,
Yep.
and the ref's call doesn't really get questioned, even though they're instant replays. But the great thing about the Pokemon card game is that if you flat out catch an illegal play, it's unambiguous at that
Yep.
point, where you see it in this footage and you're like, you know what? That's wrong. Let's go ahead and correct that. Let's go ahead and do what we need to. And that's basically what we have our judges doing right now, is they're taking advantage of all their resources, taking advantage of the stream resources, working with the players, knowing that this is an innocent mistake, and from there actually finding the best way to remedy the situation, because that's part of what a judge's job is to do, is to make sure the game's being played fair, but when some sort of mistake happens, help the players work through it.
Absolutely there. We do see the judges over there right now trying to salve a situation here, figure out what the final outcome is going to be. Going through the motions, make sure, the Memphis was knocked out. It's actually in the discard. Every piece there, and yes, the players' headphones are off, so we don't want to divulge too much information there. But it's a very unique and unfortunate situation for both players. And I'm just, I'm curious what the outcome is going to be. If it's the 2 prize penalty, Rukan only needs 1 prize left to take the game, and that could be an outcome there. It's a very unique situation to be in, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. There are different tiers of penalty, and that's actually something that controls the whole way that these situations are managed. There are different levels of mistake, where there are minor mistakes, major ones, and severe ones. And this one probably falls either in major territory or severe, resulting in kind of what you were talking about, either a game loss or what I was talking about, a multi-prize penalty, where your opponent rather is awarded 2 free prizes. And actually that rule recently changed, where the prizes are technically not drawn, so if you're just watching at home, you can't tell that there's a penalty. But at the same time, the prizes have been awarded. When I had that happen to me one time, I used a little die to go ahead and just indicate it.
So and to that point there, it's just visibly, you won't be able to see the prize taken there, but you can only take 1 or less prize right now. Pretty much only have to take 4 prizes for the game there.
Oh yeah.
Do we have a verdict, Sierra? Is that what you're getting at? Not yet.
Not yet. They're working on it now. You guys can try to keep talking.
We're going to take a brief moment here to get a chance to hear what's going on in the judges' end here. This may be a little bit of time, to get this resolved. And while we're doing that here, we're gonna be right back. We're gonna get that screen going for you here, and hopefully here soon we get that match back loaded and get back to this awesome round 8 action here at Memphis TCG Regional.
See you in a bit.
All right, Kirk back. I just got the official ruling from the head judge. They're going to assess a 2 prize penalty, which will give Rukan 1 prize left to take this game. He had the win on board. He could take a knockout that turn. Both players agree. They're going to go to a game 3 in round 8 here. Unfortunate turn of events. Thanks to the chat for helping us out, getting that sorted. Always good to be vigilant. And let's see if we can have a clean game 3 and close the door on this thing in style. Back to Jeff and John.
Yeah, for sure. We've seen a lot of drama these past 2 games, between effectively a dead start from Rukan and at this point a game that was unfortunately closed out based off of an error. So, you know what? Yeah, that's just kind of how it goes. Hopefully for this 3rd game, with the sizable time extension we've probably got for the 2 players, we can just go ahead and see a good battle of fisticuffs with Malamars.
Absolutely here. I think Jordan's going to get upper hand here as we were speaking, going through that game too. While he had that advantage, the prize count advantage lead there, plus having an easier outside these 9X attackers. Now he also has the option of going first here. So could see a let loose. Could see a lot of EKs flying around. We don't know, man, but the squids are coming to talk, ready to party.
That's right. And actually, let's see. It looks like is the action actually back?
Looks like they're still resolving some stuff right now.
Yeah.
So we're not there just yet. I guess they're still. I guess Rukan's more just curious about what's going on right now. They're you guys aren't able to see this right now. You're able to see our pretty faces, but we see the screen
and
of
they
them
are pretty.
kind of throwing hands back and forth, gesturing, just some different comments going on right now. So.
Yeah, and so what we saw here, the 2 prize penalty, we were talking about this just before we had taken our brief break, where even though it doesn't show up visually on your screen, it's actually a penalty that is marked. So the rule on that was actually changed, where there were some issues when the prizes were physically taken. It changed a lot of things where come from behind effects like counter catcher and counter energy could be triggered, almost incentivizing bad play in a way, or at least rewarding it, which is something that you definitely do not want. So it was a fantastic change, a situation where, you know what, the board hasn't changed at all. No unfairness has been done to the player who made the least error, I guess you could say. And so you really have a board that was damaged, not nearly damaged as much.
Absolutely there. No, fully agree there. I'm trying to hear both ends right now. I got you on my left and the judges on the right. I think they're still trying to have a little bit of debacle there, but maybe it's not truly resolved just yet. We got the word there from Kirk that 2 prize penalty. Rukan had the KO. We saw some handshake there, so it might be that they're IDing right now versus going to a game 3. So I think we're going to see an intentional draw here from both Rukan and Jordan. Putting them both at 6-1-1, guaranteeing their spot in day 2. And, they're going to take it around 9 and solidify how far they're going to go as far as placement.
I got to say that's a very impressive showing of sportsmanship there with an intentional draw. Now, granted, one player did end up making a bigger mistake, although it looks like they're still looking at cards, which I'm honestly a little perplexed about, where we are hearing right now in live news that there is an intentional draw going on, but we still have everybody flipping through the cards. And so it looks like it's been finalized. It looks like we actually do have an intentional draw. And at this point, a situation that could have been pretty dicey that, in all honesty, actually did seem pretty dicey for a second there, resolved in a way that both players felt mutually acceptable, because it really was a mutual error. It was just a question of what the degree was.
Absolutely there. So both players taking the ID here, round 8, solidifying their spot in day 2. We'll be right back here with some round 9 action after following this round. And thank you again for joining us here, and we'll be right back with you here soon.
Catch you in a bit.